All right, some new aftershocks this morning from President Obama's interview with the New Yorker magazine. In follow-up comments, he blames the conservative media for his lack of a working relationship with Republicans, saying, quote, "The issue has been the inability of my message to penetrate the Republican base so that they feel persuaded that I'm not the caricature you see on Fox News or Rush Limbaugh, but I'm somebody who is interested in solving problems and is pretty practical," he says. But Charles Krauthammer takes issue with this. He was speaking last night on the Kelly File and says that there's nothing sinister about disagreeing with the president. Here's Charles.
If you think, as he does, self-righteously, that there's no way to oppose him and be honestly patriotic and sympathetic to the American people, then of course you have to attribute all these evil motives to the other side who are preventing the people from receiving the message.
Joined now by Marianne Marsh, former advisor to John Kerry and a Democratic strategist, and Mary Catherine Ham, editor-at-large with HotAir.com and a Fox News contributor. Ladies, good morning. Great to have both of you with us this morning. Marianne, what do you think about that?
I think this should be the viewer question in O'Reilly's interview with the president during the Super Bowl, and maybe you'll get a different answer. The reality is, this is the political environment we live in now, and you need only to look at Mitch McConnell to see the environment we're in. He's the guy, the Senate Minority Leader, who used to cut all the deals with the White House, the Democrats, through Joe Biden. Now he won't be seen within miles of the president, miles of the White House, because he's worried about his reelection and the threat on the right for him to keep that Senate seat. So that tells you everything about the inability to get anything done with Republicans in Washington today, and that's bad for the country.
What might be also interpreted as sad is that everything sort of boils down to this political calculation. And the president says, Mary Catherine, in this interview as well, well, it's just that some of these congressmen, these Republican congressmen, I might have lost by 25–30% in their district. And so they feel like if they side with me on anything, that's going to be a betrayal. It gets sort of very calculated very, very quickly. There's not a lot of sort of, higher presidential level of looking at this whole thing. It might appear to some.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's politics. This is sort of the game he signed up for. And so expressing surprise at it all the time is a little tired to me. This idea of blaming Rush and Fox News is so very 2009, and he just keeps doing it over and over and over again. This is a guy who had 60 votes in the Senate at one point, which I don't care who you are. You don't complain at that point. And yet he's acted as if he's never had a House of Congress within his control at all. And I think it's not a good look for the president. And it looks to me as if he has never learned how to pivot from that sort of position, just saying, wow, look, they're not working with me. End of story. And look, he picked the wrong priorities when it came to both of his honeymoon periods. He did health care when people cared about the economy. He did gun control when people really were not so interested in that. And he has to pay a price for that, especially when later on those things have not been executed properly.
I mean, I do wonder, Mary Catherine, or no, Marianne. Which Mary am I talking to? Marianne Marsh. I wonder if it doesn't go back to health care. And what many perceived as the manipulation with which it was passed, because I think that it generated a lot of bad blood on both sides. And to sort of minimize it and say, oh, well, basically, my plan is better for everyone out there. And if only these folks, at Fox News, he blames, and Rush Limbaugh wouldn't stop, sort of clouding my message and making me look like a caricature, then everyone would understand that my plan is actually better for them. I mean, it's a bit condescending, is it not?
He got the votes. He got it passed. It was a campaign promise he made, and it's a campaign promise he kept. That's the reality of politics. But the politics we're in today is very different, unfortunately. So I think President Obama actually has the upper hand here. The more Republicans don't work with him, the more opportunity he has to take executive orders, to go out there and say, you know what, Republicans aren't working with me, but when they're not, I'm going to take action.
Yeah, but you are then risking,
voters out there.
Marianne, you're then risking sort of not listening to the American people. I think who's not getting enough credit in this whole conversation is the American people. I mean, 59%, according to the latest poll, do not want Obamacare. And perhaps, if the president and Republicans alike, sort of spent a little more time listening to what the people out there want, because they're pretty smart and they're not being persuaded by, I don't think, really anybody in the media too dramatically. Mary Catherine, am I on a right track, wrong track here?
I think that is part of the root of the problem. Healthcare, the plan was never popular. That's why they had to pass it in a bit of an underhanded and sort of technical way in the way that they did. And that's not something that people are excited about. And then they had a chance for 3 years to make it up to people by executing it properly. And what happened is the guy who says government can do grand big things for you ended up messing up the grand big thing he tried to do for you. And so when people look at the situation and are skeptical of what he might do in the future, that is not Fox News contributors' fault. Sorry.
All right, we got to go.
Okay.
Go ahead. Make a quick thought, Marianne.
Well, I mean, we're already in the election, right? It's the midterm election.
It seems like it, yeah.
So the president's going to act when is going to act, and both parties are going to try to get their bases up. When you look at the composition of a midterm election, lower turnout, but Republicans turn out more. Democrats are going to try to drive up their turnout better to get more seats in the 2014 elections.
All right. Thank you, Mary Catherine. Thank you, Marianne. See you next time.
Thank you, always.